So as we'll start, and again, I feel very blessed to welcome all of you from wherever you're joining us. Again, I'm Ayesha Ali. I've been a part of the IMCW community as a participant and in the last several years as a teacher. I'm also the co-founder of the Heart Refuge Mindfulness Community for People of Color. And again, I feel so fortunate to be representing IMCW today and certainly hope that you all receive some benefit from today's offering. So this second Sunday Dharma series is a fundraiser for the Insight Meditation community of Washington, D.C. We gather on the second Sunday of every month to spend time getting to know an inspiring Dharma teacher, share their wisdom, and how that wisdom, the Dharma, is meeting what is present in the world, how it is impacting their practice, and what's most important to them. We very much appreciate the donations for this event. So before we get started, let's see if my iPad will do the thing. Yeah. Today, I'm honored to have an opportunity to speak with Zenju Earthlyn about her book, The Shamanic Bones of Zen, and whatever else arises. We're going to be in conversation. But first, I have a few important details to share. I also want to acknowledge Dina and Roberta, who will be providing ASL interpretation. Thank you both so very much. You may access captioning by clicking on the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Coming up, there will be no second Sunday Dharma in May, but we will be returning on June 12th when Sylvia Garcia Pereira will be talking with Joseph Goldstein, and that link will be sent out to you. A lot of words. So let's just take a moment to connect wherever you are, whether you are sitting, standing, laying, and taking a few breaths to be here. If you wish, you might want to see if you can trust this earth to hold you a little bit more, and to the extent you can, support ease in your body. And just gently returning to our virtual, very big circle. And we can start the conversation. And I'd again like to express my appreciation for the gift, Zenju, that you have offered to those here, but also those who choose to read and experience your book. It is a gift. So you begin
Oh,
yes, please.
I just want to say thank you. I was waiting for you to pause. Just want to say thank you, and thank you to the center for inviting me. And I'm very, very excited this morning we started talking already, but to continue the conversation.
Yes.
We've been already having fun before you all showed up. So we'll see. We'll continue.
Yes. I had continued our conversation. Okay. Thank you for bringing it in here.
Yeah.
So you begin your book with a seer saying, you aren't doing nothing but magic over there where you are. What is the magic that brought you to your journey and writing the book?
The magic is my life itself. There's nothing outside of my everyday living and my experience of it. And in that experience is living a spiritual life, which is what I'm committed to and dedicated to. What does that mean? Spiritual life. And to me, that is magical. And that's a life in which I'm attuned to the earth and attuned to those around me, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, but being attuned to it all. And that is very magical because I wasn't always like that. So by the time I entered Zen Center, I had already practiced the Dharma for about 15 years. So I didn't enter Zen Center, it wasn't my first step. So I had been practicing. I also have been teaching and had students and everything before I entered Zen. And when I entered Zen, it was the beginning again. I started square one with learning about the Dharma, and I didn't speak in that practice until 7-10 years later. I began to talk. So I never talked about what I knew about Dharma, what I felt about Dharma, what I thought about anybody or anything. And I just absorbed the practice. So that was magical, to be able to just be open and be connected to the moment, the things that were hard and the things that were not. So connect to my peace, tranquility, my laughter, my joy, my pain, my horror, all of it, all at once, in the silence and the observance of myself in it. That's just it was a magical container, and still is.
Yes. I was very pleased and intrigued by the words that show up in your book, magic, and this mystery that you invite in the practice. I'm curious, though, that square one, I will share that for me, as I have gone through Christian, Muslim journey, and then on the way out, the Naqshbandi Sufi journey, and then finding my way, that there seemed to be in each of those traditions, this is the way. We're not going to bring in other stuff because this is the approach. And so I was curious. You were speaking of square one, and bringing yourself. But was there any effort to leave the previous bones behind? Was there any Yeah. Could you talk to me about that?
Not for me at all. It's impossible to leave anything behind.
Mhm.
It's in my bones, it's in my blood. I can sing all the church songs I learned, I still can sing them. And I sing them with joy. I can sing all the Lakota songs I've learned, and I sing them with joy. All the African songs, all the drumming, all of that was with me and still with me as I enter various gateways. So the gateway wasn't about shedding anything. I think that would be more like, it would feel like amputating my arms or legs or something if I did that. And so I tried to. So when I said square one in being a beginner's mind to discover, what is this? What is this Zen? Not who is the Zen, what is it? And what is going on? That's square one. That's everywhere I went. Christianity was the same way. I would ask my teachers, and I got in trouble a lot. I always had like a question about what they were saying in the Bible. And I would go to the big tent meetings with the straw grass on the ground and the big tents they would build in Los Angeles, and I loved it because it's just I couldn't wait to get there. I'd be the first one in the car waiting for my family, like I was dressed. I loved it, and I would wait there to hear this thing about life and death. Like, what is it you're saying? So everything is just opening to the discovery. Having a beginner's mind, not bringing, what I said, like Nichiren, not bringing Nichiren, but bringing it inside of me, because I don't think I could have entered Zen practice. I don't know, but I don't think I could have entered it, as you were saying, you were younger, just without having been through Nichiren. Nichiren provided for me a community of, actually, I started out in in Buddhism with people of color, and basically all Black people, and majority queer, majority lesbian, so because the way that Nichiren is, you shakobuku your friends. So I was in that community. That doesn't mean your whole circle is that, because people who lived in the neighborhood come to your meetings. So I would say the first, 15 plus 3 of being in the people of color group in Zen, the first 18 years of my Zen practice was with people of color. So I didn't enter, just like walked into Zen Center and there I was, exposed to a predominantly, say, white male situation. And I already had within me the tools and the walk already within me. The concentration from Nichiren, the shamatha, is right there. And so and like I said, I was already teaching in that, in some respect. They don't call it teaching, leading in Nichiren. And so I already had a lot of training when I came in, but I allowed that training to take a back seat. And I always do that. When I entered the Dharma, I allowed my nationalism and my Pan-Africanism to take a back seat. I invited it to sit with me over here on the side or somewhere until I could take in what was being offered, because these gateways I did not choose. Later I choose them when I decide to stay. That's when I choose them. But most of them just came to me. I did not seek Buddha, and I did not seek Buddhism.
Yes, for me, these portals, my portal of entry in this life to be here, I had a lot of plans and people had a lot of plans for me, but it wasn't to be here this Sunday.
Yeah.
And the mystery of that.
Yeah. To be in the mystery, and that's the magic.
Yeah.
That's where that magic comes in any practice. And I feel like even when you get stuck on the path, that when you open to the mystery, into the vastness of the teachings, and how ancient they are, the magic just shows up. Even if every human, vulnerability or fragility is present,
Yes.
opening up to even looking into that to discover it rather than name it and, analyze it to death. It's just to be in it and see how the magic is in there too. It's in all of it. Because if we try to divide, that's not magic, that wasn't magical, or divide or we go out looking for that magic, okay, I'm gonna bring that in too. Yeah. Even me saying it's discovery, so I'm gonna go out and discover. You have to find within you what just lights you up.
Yes.
And that is lights that it's already lit. I always say it's already lit.
It's lit.
The fire of our lives, all of us, all living beings, that fire has been lit a long time ago. And so it's there. It's how we're tending to it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So much, speaking of the music, you had a soundtrack as I explored your book. Okay. I ain't no ways tired. I didn't come this far, to that what seemed to me was true. And for me, as I continue on this path, be with and love some people that my Black nationalist Nation of Islam self is saying, girl, what you doing? It's okay. Because this way I want to be free more than I want to be mad.
Yeah.
Or any other thing, and the gift of this to move, not past it, it's not like, I think that was one of my fears, that younger self, if I don't stay in a state of agitation, they'll think I'm all right with racism, sexism, homophobia, if I don't stay like this. But the paradox is, that's a word. I mean, but that in the upside down, but to find out the upside down is the truth.
I felt like all of my interest in Black power, Pan-Africanism brought me straight to Zen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It brought me there. All of it brought me, amen and hallelujah. All of it brought me, chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. All of it brought me singing Lakota songs. All of it brought me. None of it, I never had the fear of the practice or being seen as passive, even though people may have seen that, or what does she think she's doing? Wearing those robes. And I've had people tell me that directly, what, yeah. So, I think I've lived I might get hurt personally about it in a relative place, but that it didn't stop me from knowing what I was doing with my life or how my life was being led, because I knew I could feel it when I got there. Wherever there was, wherever I showed up. So to claim, Buddhism, I remember telling my sister about it. She was like, my sister, I have two sisters, one younger and one older, and they used to like to do the same things I did. And a lot. And then eventually they kind of okay, wait a minute. I think we're going to stop here and watch where you're going. And especially when I came out, they were like, okay, queer, and then here comes Buddhism, so they were really not, they still watch. They're all in my life now. They love me. And we're very close. The three of us are very close in age and in being. Mm-hmm. However, one of my sisters asked, just what are you doing? And what does it have to do with Black people, what you're doing, because I was such a nationalist and was speaking out so much, they couldn't understand. Like, they thought that was a switch. And it wasn't a switch for me. It wasn't a turning. I said, I'm coming into being more of who I am every day, who I feel myself to be, and I can see it's ever evolving. My Blackness is dynamic. It's ever evolving. So I could be a Black Zen priest. That's an evolution, for myself. It may be even for others. Magical, but it is an evolution, that just shows it doesn't matter race and gender and on and on.
Yes.
It's there. It's our relative experience in order to engage the world, so that we can, for me, this is my experience, engagement became so much beyond influencing, being on a particular side or all of these kinds of things I used to be. It became just a landscape of life, like the ocean, just a complete landscape, all of it. So I don't want to be an absolutist, and I don't want to be a relativist either. So I'm not there, because the two are together, and I've learned to live in that integrated place. And that place is magical.
Yes.
That is the magical place. So when that voice came up, is, or someone said it straight out, like, Mara, what are you doing, Black person, with this Dharma? And it's like the kind of times when we used to think Black people didn't ski, so like, how far is this going to go? And I'm who I am, and so my sister, I said, it's suffering, where we suffer, is, these gates open up when we suffer, and I just walk through them. I don't know what they are. I had no idea what Buddhism was, or Dharma, or Zen. Yes. No idea. I really had no idea what Christianity was. That's why I asked a lot of questions. And we went to church every day, but I'm like, okay, I have some questions, So everywhere I went from 8 years old to now, I've been asking the questions, and I will continue to ask the questions, which helps me to write something like the Shamanic Bones of Zen, because I'm going, wow, what's going on here? Okay, wow, I do feel something here. And it is, in that quote you were reading, the seer says they're doing witchcraft, and then I was like, all right, I'm already a witch. So what, what's going to happen? And I don't even consider myself a witch in its tightest sense. Yeah, right. But it was like, what do you mean? We're talking about, the magic. So it kind of like, that must be what I like. Yeah. I like lighting candles. I like bowing. I like chanting. Everywhere I go, I'm at the altar. Lakota, even in, Pan-Africanism, there is an altar there. Yes. There is an altar of freedom and liberation in the church. Because the civil rights movement grew from the altar of the churches. That's right. All of it grows from the altar, from the spirit of life. All of it. So, there's no fine line. There's a fine line in how you engage your spiritual life, how you engage the world. There could be some lines and borders there.
Yes, again, as I experienced the book, that it seemed to me reconnecting what was always there. It's just reconnecting.
Yeah, it's always
new. It's not, nobody discovered no Christopher Columbusing, It's just, it's there, as the sisters used to say, baby, ain't nothing wrong. It's just life.
Yeah. Yes.
It's just life.
Yes.
5 reflections or whatever you want to say. This is the nature of our being. In your book, you talk about what's gotten lost in translation, or what's gotten lost in the transmission, particularly in the West. And I'd like you to share just a little bit of, or a lot of what you see that I'm just struck by that story of the priest that blows up the ceremony, bringing his lacquered box.
Right.
I enjoyed that so much. If you
Yeah. Ayesha is referring to the story of, and those Zen know Huitsu because our lineage is, his father started it. Shunryu Suzuki started the San Francisco Zen Center, and Huitsu, his son, came for a ceremony, and he had this lacquer box, and he was intent on that box going on the altar. So the ceremony was going along, and mostly in Zen, it's very tight, very quiet. Everything's like smooth, supposed to go smooth and on time. And he was disrupting this, and speaking to his translator. And so he eventually put that box, they eventually let him put that box on the altar. And I was like, okay, that's something they would call magic. They would call, shamanic, something that's not transmitted to us in the ceremony. And for him, it was part of the ceremony. So it kind of like alerted me and affirmed that something is missing in our practice in the transmission. I did go interrupt the Japanese speaking table to go talk about this, lacquer, container. And he opened it up. He opened that container up for me and opened up the cloth. There was a linen cloth. And he put it in my hand, and it looked like a little dried worm. I was like, oh, Lord, what have I opened myself up to? This is how my spiritual lives happen. I'm like, here I am asking questions. Oh, no. He puts it in my hand, and he says, this is the umbilical cord of our mother, of the mother. So they have in some of the Zen traditions of this part of the culture, right? Japanese culture, some places, some parts, where they have an altar with all these little black lacquer boxes and their umbilical cords of the mother, of the mothers, the grandmother, the great-grandmother, the great-great-grandmother, on and on. And so it's the mothers are revered on the altar. Now we don't have that. Do we have that in our, Buddhist transmission in the Western world? Not really. If you even, barely hear about the mother, the great mother of all of us. So I feel that, and I wrote about it in the book, that some of what, for various reasons, and I try to name some of them, a lot of the, I think, shamanistic elements like that, like say an umbilical cord, using that as connection or interrelationship and connection to the earth, that kind of thing might not have worked, or they thought might not work in the Western world, or it's so indigenous to the land and the people, it might not work. Also, when Buddhism was coming up in this country, the counterculture was bringing it, and counterculture activists at that time, I think most people of color, especially Black people, were involved in the civil rights movement, whereas the counterculture, and I would say hippies maybe, or those who were just kind of outside the culture, didn't have to be a hippie, that were interested in something different than what their parents had practiced. And so how do you bring a practice into a Christian dominance? How do you bring something different in and practice it? Well, you might leave out some of the stuff that would be called to question, like an umbilical cords, dealing with umbilical cords or various things like that. So I felt, so I began to look deeper into this. And of course, Buddhism was not the practice. It sort of became a dominant practice based on the emperors or colonialism. So a lot of, say, the indigenous rooted practices like Shinto, Shingon and the Shingon and all of these other Taoism even, just the complete, those did not come. And it was very difficult, I think, to probably do that in the Western world. But I always say that we're practicing Buddhism, a religion that became dominant like Christianity did. And I really saw that relational to how Africans once they were enslaved, or Christianity was forced upon them. And so they looked for shamanic elements within Christianity in order to practice it. So I always say that baptism did it, because in African religion, being buried in water, is very powerful in the use of water. So I would say, even if I were an enslaved African and I saw that happening, I might think, oh, there it is. There's my practice. This is what we did. They wouldn't call it a practice. This is our ceremony. This is our ritual. And so I think it opened up, although we were forced, right, into Christianity. There's still, I think, in some Black churches, shamanic elements and bones that are still held in Christianity. So the same thing with Zen. It's the same thing with all religions, to me, and maybe all spiritual path. There is a beginning. There is an ancestral beginning, and there are bones that are laying, there are people who actually did it a different way. I do say we were transmitted the most important thing, because otherwise I couldn't have written the book. I wouldn't have been able to have the experience. And the most important part, I think, that was transmitted was meditation, or mindfulness, or zazen, whatever words you want to use. And in that was the most important ritual that was given. And it is a ritual. It is not a tool. It is not an approach. It is not a method. It is not a modality. It is a ritual.
Yes, if you could please, because that was very, very much underscored in your book, and you made me miss my temple so much. I haven't been able to be there in years, but that ritual, if you could speak about the power, what the ritual does, as opposed to maybe a lot of people's experience,
right,
with it being a tool.
Yes. Okay. So it's in the mass society, Buddhism, elements of Buddhism are sold as, ways to be calm, sold as maybe psychological improvement, improving mental health, sold as many different things. And all of them I agree with. So that's not something I would say doesn't happen within the practice. But that's not the practice itself. It's pulling it out of context, and you don't have to really even be religious to accept zazen, our meditation, as a ritual to me. You don't have to even pull it, be religious in that sense. So to me, the transformative place of ritual, and ritual to me are the activities within the ceremony. So there's a ceremony, there's a container, and then there's a ritual in it. So when we are taught the ritual of meditation or zazen, we are being taught how to be in the stillness, and how to connect with the earth, which is connecting with ourselves. When we connect with ourselves, we're connecting to the earth. Because some people say, I can't connect to the earth. It's you, you, the earth, your body, connecting and just feeling into it with the breath. And getting to know it, the things you don't like, the things you like, even the things you think you can change, or think you have changed over the years. You get to just be with that. And so that ritual itself, to me, is transformative in the sense that it's to create expansion, to create that ocean that life is, to create the vastness that life is. So when we're, say, struggling, and like there was a lot of struggle, human struggles in the temple, or even if you don't go to a temple, even in your own family or in your own household, if you live with others, even if you don't live with others, you live with your pets, whoever you live with, that when suffering shows up, all of this is about suffering. When suffering shows up, that there is a ritual you can do to help expand your perspective and experience of the suffering. And so there I was offering incense. I say that in the book, in the midst of my oppression that was happening right there, right beside me. The oppression, the racism, all of it, the racism, the sexism, the homophobia, all right there, and to offer incense and touch the earth, to broaden that experience, human experience, to see it as it is, so that I could do what I'm doing now, share with others, to interconnect at that place that this human place that we have, and this spirit place that's all one. And so that's how it transformed me, the rituals and ceremonies. Same with other ceremonies I've been in, African or Lakota style. When we're doing the rituals, that's where the transformation happens. When we're talking about it all, nothing at all. And I learned African tradition, not completely. I just started going to ceremonies. I was invited with these Dahomians and straight from Africa. We're in Los Angeles, and I got to be with them. They were all diviners. I didn't know that till 20 years later. And it was amazing to just participate without having read a book, no dogma, no Dharma talk, no nothing, but just do the ritual. And how it changed my life, how it opened my eyes. We're looking to open our eyes, right? To open our heart when we say open our eyes.
Part of it, mingling with the ritual was the ancestors.
Yes.
And I am here now because of Mama and them, seen and unseen. I know they are holding me in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you would speak on the gift of acknowledgement of the ancestors, including Buddha,
right.
Which I went, well, of course, but so if you were sharing about that.
Right. That's right. Because when I speak of ancestors, suddenly everybody is thinking about something else other than right there, the Buddha. Like I said, this is an ancestral practice, completely ancestral. Not that we have to worship Buddha, but Buddha is the lineage, right, of this practice of Buddhism. And then we have our bloodline lineages. We have maybe affinity group lineages, whatever lineages that we have. Someone was before. So anything that was before us, here before us, came before us, has brought us right here together, all of us. So you want to feel the magic? Just look at the entire screen and just know that at least 4,000 people brought that person you're looking at right now on the screen. At least 4,000. That's the minimum.
Yeah.
Okay. 4,000 people brought us together, brought me and you, Ayesha, to even in this moment to speak. It's not, we think we did it. We arranged it. They might have been some phone calls and some emails, but in the realm of spirit, in the realm of the unseen, which is what these practices are holding, bring us together, bring all bodhisattvas together, all those who have the heart to be bodhisattva, to ease the suffering in the world, will bring us together. We didn't just call each other up, say, hey, come to this thing. It happens. So we have some links. Yeah, there's definitely some relative things that made it come together, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to get that link. The ones who got the link today in this moment, right here on the screen, all the ancestors. That's very powerful to me.
Yes,
that's profound. That is the deepest act of interrelationship. So we don't have to work at interrelationship. I think a lot of people think we have to work at it. It exists. Now, whether you accept it or not, that you're interrelated with all beings is another story. But we don't have to work at it. We may have to work at how we engage it and bring it to its wholeness and wellness. But it's here. Interrelationship is what Buddha taught, and it's here no matter what. And the rituals and ceremonies are to help us understand that. Despite our different views, our different backgrounds, our differences, our multiplicity in the oneness, all of it, so that we understand all of it together.
Yes.
Even when we don't like each other.
Yeah.
So the ancestors, this is the question that comes up all the time around ancestors, is like, I don't like mine. There's a part of mine I don't like. And so in case you have that question, I want to say that, like I said, ancestors are anything that came before. That's the moon, the stars, the earth, the medicine, the trees, everything, the people, all of it. But this bloodline separation is in the mind, and it's within the body if you're separated from the bloodline. So there are people in the bloodline that hurt us, maybe, or they weren't skillful. I have that in my bloodline. Doesn't make it that they're not my ancestors. No matter what I do, I cannot go back and cut them out. So when there's a snag there like that, and the woundedness is to look into oneself. A friend of mine is saying, well, I have that right live with my sisters. I don't want to be in lineage with them. And she was saying, so, they are my fodder. They are my mud. I say, you are your mud. You are your mud. And if you know that you are your mud, because you have to have mud to be a lotus, forget it. You're not going to be a lotus without the mud. So you are your mud. And everything that happens everything that happens that we talk about on Facebook or wherever in the news, all the disruption, all of the mud is to give nutrients to that lotus. And that is a shamanic image that you can even hold all the time. They talk about it all the time. I didn't make it up. Buddha presented that already. The shaman that he was presented that to so many shamanic images to us are in his teachings. So ancestors are important in the sense that you are your ancestors. I can see all your people. You can see all my people. Look at me. You can see my great-great-great-great-grandmother. Yeah. You might not be able to see exactly what they look like, but pretty close. I mean, even I'm learning, I found out I had a marker on my genes that created the arthritis that I have. And it's a marker that is only tested. They only give the test to white people. So they never gave it to me. And I suffered for 30, 40 years with this kind of arthritis that started when I was 17, because it happens when you're young. And so it actually started when I was 13. And they did say, oh, she's having growing pains. So they never tested me. So I didn't get tested. This one doctor, she said, are you biracial? And I was like, no one has ever asked me that question, and I was like, and then I started thinking about it, and I said, well, my mother's mother, grandmother, her father was white enough to pass. I don't think he was completely white, but white enough to pass. So this whole white side of the family passed, and those genes are in me. Those genes are right there. And so making me ill, from there. So you just, like it's all here. It's in my body. I don't have to, go out and, okay, let me work with my white ancestors. It's right here. Every time, my shoulder hurts, out, that's them. That's what came through physically, and there's probably things spiritually, emotionally, but it's all there just to understand, not to get fascinated with, and there's a lot of work around intergenerational trauma going on these days, and people are working in some places outside of themselves as if, your mother or uncle or brother, sister, whoever caused harm and trauma is right here. So I would imagine that any intergenerational trauma worker would be working right here with you, because that trauma's in you, and the ancestors are no longer people. You can't they're not people. Sorry, they're not people. They've been released of the body.
Indeed.
What now? If there's more mud over there, I don't know. A different kind of mud on the other side. I don't know. Kind of in a way I was thinking there might be. So, I haven't been there.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Well, yes and yes. This is the time that people can enter their questions, and we have one.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Renee. And it's, what elements of shamanism show up in your daily practice? What does your practice look like day by day?
Mm-hmm. So also when I use the word, because the word shamanism and shamanic has a lot of meanings, and I do, in the book, I do explain my use of it, and as an experience of awakening and doing rituals and ceremonies that will help that awakening and bring my whole body to the practice. So it's very simple. I think people think rituals like, whoa. So sitting down is a ritual. Or if you stand or lay down, whatever it is you do to prepare your body to be open for the wisdom, for the message of the earth, which is, this is the practice of Buddha. If he sat under many trees to get the Four Noble Truths. These things came from him sitting on the earth, just like sitting there, putting his body there. So sit down, very simple. Making offerings. That is like you may do incense, you may do flowers, you may offer food, you may offer food specific to, your culture, your ancestors. And at Zen Center, there's tea, there's flowers, there's rice, things specific to Japanese culture. I have rice on mine, but that's all about being from Louisiana, so not necessarily Japanese. And so just simple, and like I said, the main ritual is, sitting. So then people are going, well, you're telling us everything that we've been doing. And I said, correct. But what I'm bringing forth is that it is a shamanic activity, so that you can see your practice not as a modality, not as a tool, not as this thing that's going to make you better, but just a ritual within a ceremony. That's what, and maybe giving a different feel of what you're doing when you're doing it, rather than, oh my God, I have to do my 45 minutes. That if you feel like that, please read the book, not to become Zen, but to really say, I think I need to enter into this moment, this sacred moment of sitting, and I feel like I need to, pause for that, not pause because, okay, I'm angry, so I better stop and breathe. Okay, I'm upset. I'm sad. All this emotional kind of thing is good, but it keeps you wedded to the emotions, and your practice wedded to the primal animal that we are, rather than the broader sacred being. And the primal's fine. It's there. Fine. We are it. We have to eat. We have to sleep. That's our primal existence. So it's important, I think, to and try to shift and expand Buddhism into its mystical and divine place.
Well, here's a follow-up to that. What makes meditation a ritual? I think you answered this, versus a practice. What distinguishes ritual versus practice?
Okay.
Because in your book, you talk about that.
Okay, I don't know what I said in the book, but hopefully.
Zazen versus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's, I don't know what I said specifically about that. Okay. So I think because it's been delivered as a practice, we take it on like, if I learn the notes on the piano, I will become a great pianist. If I learn to sit all the time, I will become a great master. I will become something. So practice sometimes has this link of becoming something. If it's a ritual, you don't become anything. It's just the ritual. And perhaps you may become something, perhaps. But that's not the whole goal, right? That's not the point. That is not the point. I'm going to sit, I'm going to do some practice periods. I'm going to do all of this and everything they said, and then I'll be a Zen priest. I didn't have designs on being that, but I did want to share. But I could have shared before I became a priest. Like I said, I had already practiced the Dharma. I had already I was doing talks in the world because I had an oracle that came through in my first 7 years of Dharma practice. So I was already talking about that experience, like way back in 1996, 95. So if you're in ritual and you trust it as a way, it has to be something you trust as a way. I can't convince you of it, and I don't want to, because it might not be for you. But if you're open to just seeing the practice itself in that way, sitting meditation, as not, and even though I keep saying the word practice because it's just been ingrained in my head, in my mouth. It's one of those language problems, I think, with you start talking like you're Buddhist, and I can see it. I hear it even when I'm writing. I'm like, oh God, that Buddhist language, and so Buddhology just rolls out, and I'm doing it today, so I hear it. So don't think I'm not aware of it. I am aware of it, of all the Buddhology that's going on right now, because it's a language. Because everything I went into the language came with it. So I kept changing languages, like going from French to Spanish or something. If I went to some place where they spoke Spanish, I would start speaking Spanish. So the same thing with the practices, So I'm multi-language in terms of spirit work. I have a lot of words, but the last one is this Buddhism. I think that it just has a different feel, and I just invite you to open that you're not practicing, that you're in ritual and you're in ceremony. And that, often they talk about when we wake up in the morning and the sun rises, or we're going to sleep at night, we're in a cosmic ceremony. Anyway, we're always in ceremony, waking and sleeping, just simple human activity can be ritual and ceremony. And so just trying to give a different, I would say, bring a sacredness to what we're doing, which I think for me gives a different feel. I don't have to, now it's time to do Zazen. I think it's about time I do a 1 week sit, 7 days, because it's getting crazy out here. No. I go like, oh, I start hunger. There's a hunger, especially when pandemic happened, a hunger to just put my robes on and go and just be in the ceremony. Now, of course, when I get there, all kinds of things happen. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, yeah, things I didn't like or something. But to enter and breathe in a sanctuary created for this body who suffers to be is welcomed.
Oh, thank you. Jupong, I experienced white dominated sanghas where I felt invisible as an Asian person. How can I access ritual transformation in those spaces where meditation is extracted, appropriated, delivered as a tool, not a ritual?
And so because you understand that, I think you know the answer. Because you understand that it's been extracted, reduced in many places, diluted in many places, that you yourself can bring that, you can join me in bringing back the substance of this practice from the earth of India, to bring it, give it its true colors, as they say. So in practicing, I found, and I don't make this something others should do, I found that practicing in a white, and it was male dominated, was like throwing myself into a pit. I was ready now for it. 15 years of practice before I entered this pit, throwing myself into the pit of myself and how I reacted and suffered and engaged oppression. Not just in the center, because everyone in the center is just bringing all that's in the world into the doors. If you practice with all people of color, now I have a sangha that's all black. It didn't become all black because I said I need a black sangha. That it came out of, it was an open sangha, and it changed to that, and I just allowed it to morph into what it wanted to morph into. I was like, wow. So when the white members that we had gifted us the sangha, this was at the time Trump had become president, they gifted us that sangha at that time to deal and work with internalized oppression, the things that we needed to talk about and practice with. And so when that happened, I said, okay, now we're really going to be in trouble. And they looked at me because I said, it's not going to be all happy and hunky-dory. We're really going to do it now. Let's go. I was like, let's do this. And in the first, it was tough because we began to have our own stuff, right? There was no target. There was no longer a target, an external target within the sangha. So everywhere you go, no matter what group of people, there's going to be the poison of oppression. We were poisoned with oppression. In our Lakota community, there's a poisoning of oppression. There's a poisoning in Zen centers and Buddhist centers. It's everywhere. And until you can learn how to engage it with your life and how you want to live and understand this mud and see how you could use this mud, then do it. If you can't, find that place where you can, because everywhere you go is going to be mud. You can go sit with you. I'll just sit home with my family. I'll just sit with myself. Oh boy, the mud gets really high then, whew, it gets so high, you start choking, so it's always, because that's life. So whether it's oppression, it's white people, it's you don't like this person or that kind of person, these are hard, or they're dominant and they have power. Yes. All that's true. It's all true and relative. And it's been here since the beginning of humankind, and it will be here. And these disruptions and this distortion, this is what I learned. And I've been oppressed on all fronts: disability, gender, race, sexual, everything. On all fronts, I'm the poster child of being oppressed systematically, and still walk a life fully liberated in a practice that helped me to do that. And I'm not selling it because it not work for everyone, because it requires that you not expect anyone to do that work for you, to do your healing, anyone to ease that suffering for you, but to allow the environment that's presented to use it. Like I said, that I would step into that Zendo and be like, in the darkness, I just like, I would be there. And students, I invite them, not just my students I sit with, but other students as well, to go to the Zen Center, sit in that beautiful space and breathe, eat the good food, sleep in the good bed, write poetry, look at the trees, get renewed, and come back out into the world and see how you engage it. Don't engage the world there unless that's your work, that's what you want to do. But I find that those who engage with trying to change the teachers in the place takes away and distracts from you having that renewal in place that you've given yourself. Time is money. You have given yourself that time, and to give it to yourself. I did that. And they were just waiting for me to have a big brouhaha. And I never did. They were very shocked when I wrote The Way of Tenderness. Oh my God, did you experience any racist experiences? Oh my God. What happened? And I was like, what story do you want? I'm not here to tell the story. I'm not here to, but it was the most powerful time because I was right here with Zenju Earthlyn Manuel for 6 months in the forest. Oh my God. And there were times they were trying to push because things were happening. They were happening. Things were happening, and they were happening around me. And I could see it was very powerful to sit through that and to see it, but I was ready for that. I wasn't there to correct them. I wasn't going to give away the $10,000 it cost that a patron paid for me to be there for 6 months. I wasn't giving none of that away. No. Nope. Find somebody else to talk to you about it. Not me. That is not the work for me. And I do wish well-being for all of us. So that's what if you're going there, and if I went into Zen Center and that's all I saw, I would have just turned around and walked out. I wouldn't have spent 20 years, not a year, not 2, not 3, 20 years. And was it good? All good? Oh, some people have heard my stories and heard me complain and fuss and cry and everything. But when I talk about Zen, I'm not talking about the people. I'm not talking about the institution. And I say that in the book. This is not necessarily the experience of the institution. That's another book. It's a whole nother book. It's not the experience, it's the experience of Zen, the practice and how I saw it. And even though all that was happening, how I could engage it because of the rituals and ceremonies. I stayed there for that. There was the only place to me, this country, in which there was ritual and ceremony in community every day. Every day. The flowers were being offered and the water was being offered and about touching the earth was happening every day. I didn't know nowhere where that is. If there was, I might have gone there too. I didn't know where that was.
I think we've got time for two more questions. Laura, as you mentioned, your experience of arthritis. Many people experience disability and pain in the body. We all age and experiencing painful changes in the body. Can you talk about the practice of pain?
Yeah. So I don't have a practice of pain at all. No, I have a practice that's about life. I'm in pain, but I'm not in pain every moment. I noticed that. I looked for the pause, and there's always a pause of no pain in my body, like physically. So this can be metaphorically used and spiritually used in my practice as well, because I have to breathe. I don't just breathe. I got to get down with the breath. I have to breathe deeply. I am rooted in the breath. And by being rooted in the breath, it helps the pain, the physical pain. So if it's helping the physical pain, it's helping the emotional pain and the spiritual pain, and on, like see it vastly. I have to look at it as a vast situation. Now, I told you this pain showed up at 17, and I still ran track and played volleyball and won awards with all the pain. So it's how you're holding it and engaging it, the body and the things that it has within it. And so I don't, like when I went into Zen Center, I was guided to a teacher who had rheumatoid arthritis, because I kept saying I never said I had rheumatoid. There's all kinds of arthritis, but I said, okay, I'll talk to her, but we're having a different experience. This teacher and me, I don't have rheumatoid arthritis. And so I would talk to this teacher. And so it wasn't my life why I was there. Like I didn't come in. I mean, what could I choose? Oh, I came in because I'm suffering from my body arthritis. Oh, I'm suffering from being Black. Oh, I'm suffering from being queer. Oh, I'm suffering. If I fragmented myself up to all, like I told you, as a poster child, into all of those things, I would need at least 3 lifetimes to get through them. And maybe I do, but they're just all one thing. They're all one thing. Like I said, where the marker on the gene came from has to do with me being Black and it being diagnosed and everything. All of it's just one thing. It's a life. And if you could see life as the fodder to your lotus, your life is the lotus. If you could see that and live with that, the pain is part of it. My pain, physical pain, is part of my lotus. And here I am, my lotus is smiling, and yet I still have this mud, that helps me to do what I do, actually, and to share and to speak about it.
And our last question from Ma. There seems to be a belief that the world needs mindfulness. So let's crank out all these teachers. What does it take to become a legit teacher / leader of the Dharma?
That's a whole nother book, but definitely another book. I understand the increase on a metaphysical level, the increase of Dharma teachers, healers, everything is increasing, not just in Dharma. As we come more and more into collectively suffering and needing collective places to heal and to speak and to sit, whatever. And so I understand the increase. And at the same time, I do have a concern, and not just with Dharma, but with other spiritual paths that I I feel strongly there needs to be a seasoning. And some of the teachers themselves know. I knew too when I first started that I needed seasoning. And where does that seasoning come? Not from talking and talking more. The more I talk, the better Dharma teacher I become, because then I know how to say it. But I was like, no, I knew that. And I don't consider myself actually a good speaker at all. I'm only speaking from my experience and the power of the sitting that has come through me. What has made me even, I think, more expansive teacher is having students, and many people coming, I haven't had students, and are people sitting. It doesn't have to be a student, personally, your own that you possess. I don't like that idea either. Let's say aspirant, that come and sit and talk and discuss and dialogue and live with you. And so that's the way it used to be. Students would live with their teachers, walk with them, everything, and talk and be in life together. And so I believe, and I think I have some of my aspirants on this call, that we have walked for 7 to 8 to 10 years together. And that has taught me how to be in relationship with those who are seeking to walk a path. And so you have to understand relationship. And I did, made mistakes, and I got frustrated. Oh, they're not learning what I want them to learn. And, I got all ego. And when it got really, really hard for me, I remember one time I was teaching something and I was just so furious. I suspended myself from the Zendo because I didn't know how to handle my own, anger other than sending myself away. I suspended myself to protect them from my own rage. And so, because I'm rageful as any other person might be, just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean that's not true. But I began to learn, more. And I think that's important with the expansion of teachers. Now, are they teachers? Are we teachers? Are we just using that word? So we need to investigate that. Are we instructors? Maybe we're instructors, meditation instructors, not Dharma teachers. If you look back at the lineage of teachers and how they taught, you would, in the old days, you'd have to find the mountain I was living on and climb it. So you better be in good shape, ready to live out in the woods. It wasn't about reading a book or hearing a talk. And then when you got there, there was no book, no talk, just living together and being shown, which is what Zen does, is to show. And a lot of the Zen masters, Japanese Zen masters that came, Suzuki Roshi was a kind of teacher that would show his students, but we were American, they were American, and they were used to wanting to be told. If you, any indigenous practice, they're not going to tell you. When I did the African death, they didn't say this. There's no talking about it. So you don't go out and go, now do this, start trying to teach somebody how to do something you just started doing yourself. In any indigenous practice, they don't talk about how you're doing it, what to do, and here's the Dharma talk. It all happens in ceremony. You fall out, okay, that says something, about, are you, something's going on, you get to get guidance, but it's the practice itself. It's not spelled out.
Well, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who's here and everyone who will be getting on the recording. Sending the wish that something touched you and opened up some spaciousness in your life.
That's it.
So just again, what a gift this has been. We appreciate everything and have a wonderful and very blessed day. Be well.
Be well.